Hey, Yinzer friends in the neighborhood, this is WAP bringing you another episode of Yinzology, the study of all things Pittsburgh. This video is brought to you by Bellevue Cigars. Looking for the perfect stogie? Retrohale your next nicotine bomb down to the nub in their relaxed lounge. All right, welcome back to the Pensy Gay Rolge. Hello, Pittsburgh. So I am your licensed Yinzologist, trained and certified to take you through TV land. A lot's happening around Pittsburgh and Pennsylvania. There's a movie they've been working on in Pennsylvania, and this life and the story behind Hershey, PA, and that classic, famous chocolate Hershey bar. There's all sorts of things to talk about today. And I think we're going to start with the Pitt. All right, everybody's talking about the Pitt, Pitt this, Pitt that, Allegheny General Hospital, trending. A lot of people watching the show. I personally can't watch it. It's too realistic. I don't know why you'd want to go into an emergency room and watch, because a lot of people that are in the medical field, they're like, this is pretty realistic. And I just can't watch that stuff. But the writers they're doing their due diligence, and doing their homework. And it's okay, it's not impressive, but they are picking up some, what would you call them, Easter eggs, or kind of like recognizing the culture and the area of Pittsburgh. They dropped the name of fireworks. I think the one guy gets there, he's in the burn unit or something. They finally got some nurse to say Jagoff. Go check it out here if you want to learn more. We talked about the TV show The Bear, takes place in Chicago, and they're dropping Jagoff like every other episode. But I make the argument that the word originates in Pittsburgh. So the writers of the Pitt, if you are watching, you need to drop that word a little more. And a little advice, I think you need to get a few more Yinzers into the waiting room or into the emergency room, you know, kind of like a real Yinzer dialect, like, hey, tell us what happened. How did you get injured? I was trying to start my lawnmower outside. You know, it's just, I don't know if it was spark plugs or carburetors clogged up from last year, but I think I pulled a muscle. So I went in the garage to cool down and get an iron. I don't know if it was transmission fluid or the oil, but we were working on the Bonneville down there, my buddy Ronnie and I slipped and I cracked my skull open, and I went up and get a shower, and I said, honey, I still don't feel right. My head's kind of leaking blood. And she like, honey, you just got to go down to AGH, all right? And you need to have them check it out, and that's why I'm here. You know, you need to have like that interaction, that dialogue, and, you know, to really bring it home, okay? So, hey, the Pitt did something amazing. They really did their homework, and they recognized one of the best kept secrets, and it really shouldn't be a secret because it's an amazing story of perseverance and courage and pioneering that's true to the Pittsburgh spirit. And that is that they mentioned the first American paramedic EMT response team were the blacks in Pittsburgh.
I remember what's important, like the Freedom House.
What's that?
Damn shame. That's your history.
Dad, they're busy.
Back in the 60s, no 911, no ambulances. All we had was police paddy wagons that took you to the hospital if you were lucky. Then this doc from Pitt, Dr. Safa, he got some money and trained us up.
Well, you must have been a good student.
Hell no. I was a knucklehead. Smoked a lot of weed, dropped out of high school. But Freedom House trained me up. Saved my life.
Back in the 60s and 70s, when you lived in the hood and you got hurt or injured, people did not show up. Like, you couldn't call the police and there were no paramedics. And if the police showed up, they were no help at all. And honestly, you probably didn't want them there. And they either didn't show up or they ignored you. So the story of the first paramedic team of young African-American males servicing the streets of Pittsburgh. Now, the history of the ambulance or medical assistance out in the field has been in history since the dawn of time, you know, oftentimes in war, you know, just pick a war. There's some sort of group of men or women or both who go out into the field and risk their lives to try to heal the wounded. And it's this mobile unit that can go anywhere to help the wounded soldiers. But this is the first paramedic team where you have a vehicle in response, where you have medical equipment that can be on the move, kind of like a mini hospital on wheels, life-saving procedures that are mobile and fast to get you to the hospital. That word para, you find it in parachute, to come alongside the medicine. You're coming alongside the hospital. And I have a good friend. She has been a young paramedic in the Pittsburgh-area. I tried to get an interview with her, but for legal reasons, she's like, I can't really talk about anything. I don't want to get in trouble with my job and all of the politics that would surround that. But they are just amazing heroes. And it all started in Pittsburgh. So I recommend this book. I'm only up to chapter 4, but I can already recommend this. I'm already enjoying this. This is up until the 1970s. If you suffered a medical crisis, your chances of survival were minimal. You call the operator. I don't know if they had 911 in the 60s. You call the operator, you call for the police or even the local funeral home. They weren't going to help you. But all that changed with the Freedom House EMS in Pittsburgh, a group of black men who became America's first paramedics to set the gold standard for emergency medicine around the world, only to have their story and their legacy erased. You know, a lot of people still don't know about this story until now. And Denzel just did a movie in Pittsburgh with August Wilson, the famous play that he did, The Piano Lesson. And Denzel, man, maybe this is your next movie. Denzel, if you're watching this, The Equalizer, and I'm giving you 3 seconds to make a decision. And if none of that 3 seconds, you make a movie. You hear what I'm saying, son? American Sirens. Yeah, that's a great movie title, American Sirens. Kevin Hazard tells the dramatic story of how a group of young, uneducated black men forged a new frontier of healthcare. Every turn, Freedom House battled racism from the community, from the police, from the government. Their job was grueling. Rules made up as they went along. Their mandate nearly impossible, and yet, despite long odds and fierce opposition, they succeed spectacularly. Never before revealed in full, this is a rich and trouble-hidden story of black origins and American paramedics, a special band of dedicated essential workers who stand ready to serve day and night on the line between life and death for every one of us. American Sirens by Kevin Hazard. And thank you, Pitt, for doing your due diligence and mentioning this on one of your episodes. That's pretty cool. So moving on to number 2, and if you are a subscriber, you have heard me mention my favorite author from Pittsburgh, David McCullough, wrote this beautiful book on the Brooklyn Bridge, all right? And that reminds me, if you haven't subscribed, don't make this awkward. Like, what are you waiting for? Like, just hit the subscribe button, and when you do, you feed Algo. Algo's a dingo who's really a German Shepherd in a Pittsburgh Steelers jersey. You feed him. Now, if you're a Downton Abbey fan, the same writers and directors, they are bringing us something new in the Gilded Age. All right, so instead of England, we are now in New York. All right, and here comes my English accent, because they still have a little bit of that. Even though they're in New York, they're still talking very proper, very English, right? Hello, Pittsburgh. Welcome to the garage. And all kinds of Pittsburgh steel references, like the Robin Bearers, like Frick and Carnegie, and all the rest of them is just fictional. I don't know if he's fictional. Russell, the Russell family is one of these Robin Barons, right? Made out to be depicted as evil and greedy and ruthless and wealthy, powerful. And he's fighting with the Pinkertons and the steel mills, and he has to go down to Pittsburgh on his fancy railroad car. I mean, it is just, they do a spectacular job with this show. And they have a segment, I believe it's season 2. And this really isn't a spoiler alert if you know your Pittsburgh history, but they focus and zero in on the building of the Brooklyn Bridge at that time. When it opened up, it was the 8th wonder of the world. And the architect behind it all, John Roebling, from his house, still standing, began his trade and his roots in building bridges around the Pittsburgh, Western PA area, ends up starting construction on the Brooklyn Bridge. It takes so long, he dies, gets injured, bunch of people die, a lot of people die. His son takes over, a couple of his sons take over. There's some discrepancy on which son is actually in charge and who should get recognition. But Washington Roebling and his wife, Emily, there's a whole chapter on Emily in the back. And as always, these amazing men would not be where they are if it weren't for the women in their lives. And Emily, her husband goes down, he's ill in a wheelchair or whatever. He can't do the work that he used to do. Guess who does it? Emily takes over, and she runs the office. She delegates. She handles the bills. She handles the meetings. And it's all kind of top secret, and there's all these rumors and whispers. Well, the Gilded Age show focuses in on this whole story. And it's beautiful and it's true.
Where did you study engineering? How was it possible?
When my father-in-law was first commissioned to design the bridge, my husband and I went to Europe to study what it would entail. Stress analysis, cable construction, calculating catenary curves, and the rest.
And whoever the writer was, there is no doubt in my mind this is sitting on their bookshelf. Like, they read this book to do their homework to get those episodes ready when they went and visited the Roebling family. On a side note, I am enjoying this book. I said I'm only in chapter 4, but the only photograph is the one on the book. So I don't know if there just aren't any more photographs out there, or maybe he just didn't have it in the budget. But I would love to have seen more photographs of these guys in action. But this book does have some photos. Washington Roebling, and then there's Emily. But in all, some 14 tons of rockets and flares were set off from the center of the river span and from the tops of the towers. Bands played on board excursion steamers on the river, and then the celebration lasted until dawn.
Disappointed.
Pleased, certainly. These are the most spectacular fireworks I've ever seen.
So after the bridge was built, years and years later, Emily dies before her husband, and Washington lives alone in his house with his servants. But the wire business, so he's not only a bridge builder. Before he starts building bridges, he designs and invents and modifies the first wire cable. And that's what That's what he starts, I believe, in Saxonburg. The wire business became the biggest business in the world. The demand was unending. You think about it. Telegraph wires, balancing wires, electrical wires, wire cloth, bridge cable wire, construction for the Panama Canal, wire rope for cable roads, coal mines, ships, oil rigs, logging, tramways, elevators. The Otis Elevator Company was buying nearly all its cable from the Roeblings. Sons of John A. Roebling had become millionaires many times over. The Washington Roeblings' own estate was approximately $29 million. I mean, it was crazy. So if you're an Office fan, you are very familiar with Parks and Rec. They went on to do Parks and Rec mockumentary. And season 6, episode 13, Leslie throws this party for Anne. It's a going away party. And Leslie's like, these are all the holidays we're going to miss, Anne. And in the background, one of those holidays that they're going to miss, you can see it in the background, Talk Like a Pittsburgh Pirate Day. And that is a reference from season 5, episode 19, where they talk about Talk Like a Pittsburgh Pirate Day. Now, Madness is a show I never watched. I think it's still on Netflix. And it's a show about a murder in the Poconos. I don't know. I don't know if that's any good. And then Watson. I've never watched Watson, but Watson has a lot of, they recreated buildings and scenery to look like Pittsburgh from a long time ago. Now, Tires I have watched. Shane Gillis is a comedian in this TV series. And it's a fictional town in Valley Forge, PA. So occasionally you'll get Pennsylvania references in this show. And one is Shane Gillis is the comedian. He's the main actor. He has a little box turtle. He names him Jerome Bettis. But it's a tire shop, so you're constantly seeing Pennsylvania license plates.
My sister, so she was doing heroin. We had to have a intervention for her. She lived out in Pittsburgh. We live in the middle of Pennsylvania, so we had to trick her to come home. You got to trick them.
Then there's one more on Amazon, and it's about an Indian family that moves to Pittsburgh. I never watched it. I don't think it lasted very long. Comment below if you know anything about that one. So there you go. There's some small tidbit cinematic trivia pieces of Pittsburgh for you. Hope you survived the winter of 2025/26. I hope you see that there's light at the end of the tunnel. We are close, my friends. You can smell the fried fish. All right, we're in the season of Lent, which for Yinzology is a very memorable time because one of our very first videos is about fried Lent fish, the classic Pittsburgh fish fry. So check that out. And as always, thank you for watching. And until next time, I'm Double AP and I'm out.